welcome to the D-Spot. I am excited today to introduce you to a couple that I have recently got to know and I incredibly have so much admiration for. They're resilient, they're entertaining, they're just delightful. So I'm excited to introduce you to Monique and Saint. Hi, guys.
Hi,
Hi,
we're
how are you?
delightful. I don't know that we've ever been
I-
called delightful.
Do you
I've
prefer
never
not
been-
to be delightful? I could say something else that feels better. What
no,
have you been
no,
described
that-
as?
I'll take it.
No,
you know.
yes, I was saying that as yay. We're
Well,
you know,
I mean, I think you should get out of your life. At the end, you should have been called a little bit of everything.
yes,
So I'll
Well,
take
I will only call you positive things. I just want to let you know, and I think
Well,
that
trust
you're...
me, the negative things have all been taken.
yes, absolutely, absolutely, every day.
So, hello. All right. So, I want you to introduce yourselves because you do so many things. Like you're artists, you're entertainers, you're professional wrestlers. Why don't we do this? Saint, you introduce Monique, and Monique will introduce Saint, and tell us a little bio about why this person that you're sitting next to is so amazing.
I see what she did.
Yeah, I see what you did. Okay. Should I go first then?
Oh, I'll go first.
Okay.
This man right here, his name is Anthony Saint Thomas. He is a man of many talents.
Mm.
He is not Mr. Dupree. He is his own entity in his own person. He is a Renaissance man. He's an artist of many mediums. He's an a voice, a poet. He does well. He's a rap artist. I don't like to say rap artist, but yeah, he's a
Why
rap
do you
artist.
not like to? What does that mean if you? That's not what. It's not delightful if he's a rap artist.
Well, no. It's not that. It's me and my wording.
She
how
feels
I.
that she feels that it's a limitation.
Yeah, that it puts him in like it puts him in a box, but he's
Gotcha.
much more than that. You know, I would put him in the spoken word artist, all of that. But one of the bigger things that I love about him is that he's an author. He's a published author, as a matter of fact. And just being able to read and see all of the crazy stuff that comes out of his head onto paper and the brilliance in which he puts it together is pretty phenomenal. What most people do know him as, however, is the man of many children, which which
So for those people who don't know, how many children do you have? Side note.
well, we have 10 children, but collectively we have 14.
Okay. And so for those of you that are not watching this video, I cannot believe that you have that many children because you both neither have wrinkles and you don't look completely stressed out like you're pulling all of your hair out. So you've done something astonishing having 10 children and looking as great as you do. So continue.
Well, thank you. He's the biggest thing about him. I keep talking about him. I'm supposed to just be introducing him, and
Okay.
it's okay.
I like the
I go on.
admiration.
I babble, but I am his biggest fan, and that was why I pushed him from the beginning to put his work out there when he was unsure about self-publishing, so on and so forth. And he's incredible. I just want the rest of the world to actually see and know this, and then we'll be cool.
I couldn't imagine a better introduction, Saint. How are you going to top that?
Oh, I try not to top her, especially when it comes to things like introductions and any kind of performance whatsoever. That's more her category. This is Monique Dupree Thomas, also known in certain circles as Gata. If you're into trauma movies or Fangoria, you will recognize her as the first Black Scream Queen. She is an actress who I personally feel like never quite got her due, but a lot of her performances speak for themselves. She is a singer, performer, dancer, yes, a pro wrestler. And even beyond all those things that are in front of the camera, which, are the obvious things because she's model pretty and all these things. She is phenomenal in all things promotion. She is a production genius.
Oh,
It's basically, it's kind of a dual-edged sword where she belongs in front of a camera, but probably does a lot of her best work behind one. So,
Wow.
I agree with that. And thank you so much. See, he's a wordsmith though. He writes. Thank you.
no, that's a thing. It's totally the truth. It's true.
Okay.
So if you can't already tell, this is a couple that loves each other and respects each other, and I can tell that there's a really solid friendship there. So that's part of the reason that I wanted you to be on this podcast about relationships, because I think a lot of us are searching for what it is that you seem to do so effortlessly with each other. So I'm
Oh, no.
Oh,
It is.
okay. So let's
We
just
are
get
both
right
in
into it. Why
agreement
is it that it's not effortless?
it is not effortless. It takes a lot of work.
And I do agree that we have a friendship that supersedes everything else because, at the worst times when we've gone through the worst things, we've managed to at least preserve a nice, good level of our friendship, which is why we can be in front of the camera now and we get things done the way we do. We have our friendship to fall back on. I do feel that's very important.
It is.
But it's never effortless.
No, it's not. And I think one of the biggest questions that I get asked, which I think is the weird commonality, is I get, how could you want to be with the same person, you know, for so long or for your life? And I feel like I'm not with the same saint that I was with when we first entered this. But I'm serious. It's
No, I
because
just think it's funny.
because it's weird, but I never thought about it that way. It's we're always evolving. We're always hopefully growing. Sometimes not so much, but we change. We build or we take away from who we are, and I feel like I have so many different uh versions of him. And I know it's funny that I say that because he has stories about when I wear different color hair that people thought I was different people and he was cheating on me when in fact I was the same person. But that's not what I'm talking about.
It goes deeper than that. She's absolutely right. Where if you're not evolving, if you're the same person at 50 that you were at 20, then you wasted 30 years in the immortal words of Muhammad Ali. But beyond that, speaking of her individually, she is an actress. And I have seen so many facets of this individual over the years. I mean, I've actually come home from a movie set with her and came home with someone completely different.
Because she evolved. Because she evolved, or she was still in character.
I was still in character.
She was still in character.
Okay.
She immersed herself so deeply into a character that person came home with me. And during dinner, I was like, well, maybe my wife will show up eventually.
Do you think that that's part of why stereotypically relationships that are in the entertainment field struggle? Because I think what you're referring to is sort of this idea that you get so connected with your character, like that you identify with it and you have to stay in that role so that you can stay present and be able to go back to work the next day and bring that character. And when your partner is used to experiencing the other version of you, they don't know what to do with the role that you're in, or they don't know how to be as flexible as you're being, Saint.
I don't think
so.
I think the number one problem with entertainment relationships is basically the actual time spent, period. I think a lot of people can't deal with being disconnected, and then they And relationships, period. I find that a lot of relationships are what I refer to as fast food relationships,
Yes,
where
absolutely.
if there is a major problem, you get out as fast as you possibly can. You know, it's not cooking a meal; it's buying a burger at the drive-through.
Right.
You know,
Well, we live in a fast food society, but
we live in a very microwave based society,
and everybody's looking for
and
love and
uh,
connection, but they're not willing to put
they're
in that.
looking. Well, everybody's also looking for an out.
That's true, but it's like they look for the end, and when they get the end, when everything's great, it's great, but when it's bad, then instead of dealing with it, it's like, all right, they leave, and then it's, why can't I find love or what have you. I mean, we've gone through, we have 30 years, so there's been so much. We've had the greatest times, and we've had the absolute worst times, and it's never been easy. Even the good times, it just, relationships are work. It is a lot of work, but it's a lot of compromise, it's a lot of communication, which is where I fell short of, in especially like in our beginning to middle years, because of how I grew up. I didn't understand how to communicate in a relationship, whereas he loves to approach everything, every single thing. He's like, all right, we're going to talk about this right now, and I didn't know how to do that for the longest time, and he put up with that.
But at the same time, I mean, is this a PG show?
No, of course not.
Okay, I don't want to.
Oh Lord.
I don't
Lay
want
it
to be
on
out of
me. Drop
pocket.
whatever you need to drop, Saint. It's all good.
Well, basically, for all intents and purposes, in actuality, I'm a bit of an asshole.
He is.
I say what's on my mind. I'm
That's how I
ready.
first met him.
I'm ready to deal with the consequences, good or bad. That's not to say that I've never found myself hurt behind my own consequences, because I have. However, I know that if I open my mouth to say something, then I'm going to have to deal with it one way or another. I've made that a priority in my life for, I mean,
Quite some
since I was a
time.
teenager,
Yeah.
you know, that I was going to say what I felt or thought if it was important to say it.
Yeah, sometimes it's just not worth it. Yes.
Sometimes being the asshole that I am, I will sit on the sidelines and watch the world burn. I will.
His first line to me was quite assholic, which is like, it's weird because
We
I
weren't
still
we weren't
fell for him.
it wasn't like I was trying to date her when I said what I said.
True, but you were still being an asshole.
I was.
So, okay, that's important because there's lots of us that are in relationships with assholes. That's identifiable. But there's something happening between the two of you where one of us is giving somebody the benefit of the doubt, or you're stating it in a way that she can hear it, or you can hear it, Saint, so that it doesn't cause so much defensiveness that you never get anywhere in the conversation. So there's something in there that you guys are really doing well. What do you imagine that is?
Well, one of the things is that I'm, even when I say something out of pocket, it's never something that's a falsehood or actually intended to do harm.
Mm.
I just have a way of speaking.
So
He's
you're
very,
talking
very
of,
blunt,
you're
though.
talking about your truth, and because you're not attacking her character or telling she's a bad person for your truth, it makes it easier to hear.
Well, it makes it easier to hear now. That wasn't always the case.
Yeah, that was definitely not always the case. And again, we just actually revisited some of this conversation where I was expanding upon the fact that I was telling him, I didn't realize that uh my childhood had such an effect on my relationship in the beginning and how I did things. And, those things were not good decisions, the way my thought process worked for a successful relationship. But I'd never seen a successful relationship. I had never really seen a relationship, in my family. It's just a bunch of strong women, and that's pretty much it, with the exception of what I was dealing with, my mother.
And that's actually something that we had in common.
Yes.
Because I wasn't raised with my father.
Right.
So I was raised by my mother and a sister.
Which strong women. Yes.
So
we definitely had that commonality. What we didn't have in common was a lot of the really really bad things that happened with me that just kind of altered my life as a child. And when I got into the relationship, I didn't understand a lot of what he was explaining, only in my own for lack of a better term, enlightenment, because they say when you hit rock bottom is kind of when you really start to see things.
Yeah.
And I spent a lot of time by the water while I was at rock bottom, just trying to figure out myself. And it helped a lot, and it opened up a whole branch of a new branch of communication where he could open up this dialogue, and I don't automatically get offended at what's being said. And that took a long time, and that took growth for me to be able to get there with him.
But on the other end, I can see how I approach or speak of things could be offensive. But I was also raised by my mother, who give no quarters and ask none.
Really, she doesn't.
And
She does not.
And
Not at all.
basically, I've seen my mother. Well, I grew up in a really rough neighborhood. I've seen my mother make full-grown gangsters cry and put down their guns and go home.
Wow.
With
Yes.
words.
And she can still do that today.
Yes,
in between her rum shots.
All 5 feet of her sipping her rum shots that she constantly tries to convince everyone is a pina colada.
I love that woman so much. I love that woman so much. But he's absolutely right. We've come to a better, more elevated place, even as of recently, where, like I said, communication is really, really important. It's something that I didn't understand how to do for the longest time, because I was taught to close off things when things got rough, so that I don't remember that they happened, because of all of the trauma and whatnot that I experienced. So I'm just starting to let go of that trauma, if you will, as at 48.
Yeah.
And that plays a big part, how you were raised and what you carry in, and what you're not willing to negotiate or talk about, weighs heavy on a relationship. And I feel like, and I'm not saying that I just did all of this stuff in this, because it takes 2 of us.
Right.
But I had to identify and recognize where I was going wrong, not where he was going wrong. And I used to do the reverse. I'm like, well, you did this and you did this, and that might be true, but what did I do? I have to really have an open dialogue with myself and go, okay, you really did do this, you really did do that, just admit it, let's discuss it, and so on and so forth. So
I wonder if what part of what makes you guys work so well is, I hear, you're reflective about the trauma that you've went through, and that you've done your work to heal with it, the sitting by the water and recognizing who you are and your value, and working through some of that stuff. And what I'm hearing is that because he's so solid in the fact that he's going to tell you how it is. You're not going to have to guess. You're not going to have to like walk on pins and needles or wonder if he's going to show up one way or the other. There's a security in that that gives you space to go heal your stuff without having to be so hypervigilant about what's going on in our relationship.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much.
I mean,
Is
that's.
that no?
Yes. No,
You know,
no.
I mean,
Yeah,
there's
we
we're two separate individuals.
Yeah.
So does that?
Yeah.
But when you have a trauma background, everything is a threat, right? I
Yeah.
have to be worried about everything that's coming at me, and there's no consistency. And I certainly don't have the time and energy to get into myself because I'm in survival mode most of the time. And so,
Exactly.
in your asshole mess, at least you were direct and clear, and it didn't change from day to day. You were who you were. And then once she got a baseline of like, okay, this is what life is like, then she's like, okay, now I can spend some energy in figuring out who I am because my foundation is clear. And you're going to be the same guy I went to yesterday, the day before. You're probably going to be like this tomorrow. Thank you for that gift of not making me be in survival mode so that I can go do some of my own healing and come back and gift you with the healing that I've been doing.
Exactly.
Well,
The
see,
only
I feel so
caveat,
much better about being an
well,
asshole.
the only
I was
caveat
reframing
about
it for
that,
you,
though,
love. You're a fantastic asshole. I appreciate all of that about you.
the problem, the problem really was also when, you know, we've both suffered our traumas, but he didn't come from that type of traumatic background that I did. So there were things that I was doing that would look, you know, like erratic and
Yeah.
and scattered and crazy, and but the thing of it was, and you said it more succinctly than I probably could have ever said it. I always felt like everything was a threat,
Yeah.
but it was, during my trauma, like I lived that part of my life when I never knew, I could never rest. I never knew when, things were gonna break down like that. So it was harder to see, but I feel like we've come to a place now where I can explain those things a little better. And then if he doesn't understand, he'll go, okay, I understand this part, but can you explain this part? And sometimes I can, and sometimes I just have trouble.
Well, I mean, at this point in my life, and this is something that's grown from me. I'm past the point of needing to understand every little thing.
Yeah.
I am a completely different entity. I have no point of reference really for what she survived. I mean, I know that knowing her and knowing her history, I know a lot of it was horrible.
And you were there for little things,
Well,
so you got to see for yourself.
I got to
Yeah.
see it, but being
Yeah.
a spectator isn't isn't really having the same experience.
I know.
I mean, we all feel bad for the character who's going through hell in the movie, but we can't always relate to that character on every level.
Absolutely.
You being who you are, I can't always understand what it's doing to you in its entirety. I
Right.
can't. And I used to need to understand everything, but that's a falsehood that I fed myself.
Yeah. Well, I
I
know
don't,
you're not that way anymore.
well, but we're doing this
But
interview thing. So I stopped needing to understand everything. I know that what she went through has moved her in several different directions. And I had to respect that reaction because it's her reaction.
Yeah.
At the same time, being who I am, I also have to take into consideration that I deal with anything traumatic way differently. I very rarely feel threatened. Where she might feel threatened, in most cases, I feel challenged, and I feel like I'll growl and roll my shoulders back and kind of dare the individual or the situation to come any further. But that's how I deal with things.
Yeah.
That's how I'm built. that's a lot of how I was raised too.
Yeah.
In no uncertain terms, my mother and my sister raised me, and neither one of them took shit.
At
There
all.
was, and if I did when I was younger, invariably I would have to deal with one of them. And I'd rather take on a foaming mouth rabbit pit bull than to deal with one of them.
Yes.
So, I had to come to the conclusion that I didn't need to understand every single thing. What I needed to do was understand that not just her, we all live through our traumas,
Right.
Yeah.
and we have to have the room to deal with our trauma the way we need to deal with it. Sometimes, sometimes you fall into levels that are unacceptable, but those are rare occasions, and she didn't fall into those categories. There's things she needed to deal with, and how she needed to deal with them. She needed to deal with them. Did anybody get hurt? Not really. So what's the problem? But I think that's the important part.
I think it's
I'm
also refreshing that I'm not hearing you say, either of you, that I need to fix my partner's feelings, that I'm not getting insecure or feel put off or not want to deal with my partner, because my instinct is I want to make it better for them. And what you both are sort of instinctually saying is that I know I can't fix my partner's feelings. I haven't had the same experiences they have. I haven't had the same family that I grew up with. I don't exactly know what they need. I just know I'm available if you need something from me. I'm here to let you know if I can support it, but it's not my job to fix you. And that's so healthy. How did you get to that place?
by doing all the other stuff first.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
By process of
Write down
elimination.
that check.
Pulling out the tools, going, okay, you're broken. I'm gonna fix you now. Where's the crazy glue?
But here's the thing: a lot of people, their relationship doesn't survive long enough to really check off all of the things that we ended up checking off.
Well, I think that comes back to the friendship though,
It does.
because we've had situations where, you know, like she said, rock bottom. We've hit rock bottom as individuals, as a couple, the whole 9 yards. But we did maintain a friendship and family and taking care of each other.
Mm.
So in that sense, there's always the possibility to correct yourself. That always has to be open. I think that a lot of relationships fell because of the friendship side of it.
I think that's one of the biggest things is because of the friendship.
That the friendship goes the way of the dodo.
We started off, we started off,
friends.
yeah, because it was, our relationship, dealing with our relationship from the beginning was always rocky. And when I say rocky, I don't even mean necessarily the two of us. I mean the things that happened around us. But we were really good friends and there for one another during our relationship breakups with our people. But we already had that foundation where we came to one another for nearly everything, and we were able to open up and talk to one another, so we had that friendship connection already. It wasn't that we just started dating first, so we were friends.
And in our worst times, we managed to maintain a level of that friendship. I mean, we've had at our worst times, we've had disasters occur, and we helped each other through them.
Yeah.
It stopped being, even if it was for the moment, that we're not getting along and we have to deal with this.
Absolutely.
And you have to be friends to do that. You have to be and not to sound like a high functioning sociopath, but
Says the high functioning social.
all the other things are malleable with time. You know, you're gonna be an 80-year-old. You're not going to be running on the beach swinging each other in your arms and all that storybook schoolboy schoolgirl romance. All of that evens out in the wash. Don't have friendship
Yeah.
or something else. I mean, even if there's a full scale breakup, if you have that friendship, you might come back together. You will be able to have a successful breakup. There are people who never speak to each other again. I've always been really enamored and amazed by people who have these huge breakups and they're still saving each other in the real world because they can't stand to see something happen to the other.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's more important than all the fanfare,
Right.
you know.
Because
Even
what
though
I'm
I do like when he's romantic and stuff like that. I mean, he does his kind of brute romanticism type thing, but I love that. Brute is it, it's not the it's not what you see when you think about romantic, but he still has his romantic things, and he's like a magician. He pulls stuff out when we have nothing. He'll pull gifts out of thin air, like, here, I got this, like, months ago, because I knew we were going to be broke, and so I saved this for
Aw.
you. you know and then he'll just go, here, happy whatever. But so but if anybody else were like watching, like, one of our girls saw one time, it's like, dang, dad, you just gonna hand it to her like that? Like, where's the romance? But that is
style.
it's his romance, because he thought about me months ago. He put it aside, and it, knowing that we go up and down with finances because of how many children we have, and he thought of me. That's the romantic part for me.
Yeah.
He thought about it and he held on to it.
There's been a couple of times that's gone awry though. I mean, not terribly awry, but it's gone awry. I remember because she's fascinated with Japanese culture.
Cool.
Well, I mean, she has Asian in her family,
Yeah.
and she doesn't really have much connection with Asian bloodline.
Right.
So she's developed a fascination with Japanese culture. But
So you try to buy things that represent something that is important to her, that she's into.
absolutely,
Yeah.
always. But in
Yeah.
this particular case, I had gotten a metal Japanese teapot and cup set. And this was real early on. I can't remember which anniversary it was, but I knew it was metal.
Yeah.
So I got it and completely forgot about it.
I
Should
know
I
you
continue
guys
the story?
I know you're in a time crunch, so I'm going to ask you to respond to something. So I was poking around on your social media, and I heard you say something that I thought was really beautiful. So I wrote it down, Monique, and I wanted you to maybe tell me a little bit about what was going on, if you remember. You wrote, or you said, sorry, you are not what happens to you. You are how you respond to what happens to you.
Yes.
How has that contributed to this successful relationship that I'm learning about and feeling so impressed by?
Well, that statement became important because I didn't do that before. I just thought that everything that happened to me was just, I didn't how do you we just had a conversation about this. Sometimes I
She
fall short on my
she
words, because
she used to be what happened to her.
thank you. That's
Yeah.
what I was trying to say. And I used to embody that everything that happened to me, I wore it. You know,
That's, I think, more importantly than a relationship, just that interpersonal growth for her was way more important than anything else.
Yeah.
Because I can't see that as being anything but damaging. I mean, I carry a lot of things with me, but I've never carried things so much that they weighed on me the way her life has weighed on her.
Mm.
I come from a rough place. I carry that with me, but I always found a way to make that I can deal with what's next because it's not where I came from.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
whatever comes next is easy pickings usually compared to that.
Absolutely. And I post that a lot now when I need to remind myself, but also, I do this and I keep telling people it's not an act, and it's not that I'm happy all the time, but my hashtag Vibrate Higher,
Mm.
because I just like to let people know, like, we're very different, clearly. And one of the things that I would do sometimes is I put a little of myself out there because people do see me as a celebrity, which I don't understand. But I put myself out there a little bit sometimes, even when bad things are going on, to let people know that I don't just talk about the pretty things or make my life seem like it's just all wonderful all the time. There's rough times, there's bad times. I feel down sometimes, I feel low sometimes, but I have to actually deal with those feelings. And I
Mm.
don't want to sit there in it and live in it.
Mm.
That's damaging for all kinds for yourself and all of your relationships around you. We have children. That's not healthy for me. That's not healthy for them. That's not healthy for him to be surrounded with that. So I started doing the Vibrate Higher, and I would go by the water and I would just talk about just things, life, relationships, family, and always end it with, you're gonna go through struggles. Every day is a struggle. That's life.
Yeah.
But you have to learn how to vibrate higher. You have to learn how to actually vibrate higher. And that doesn't mean that your problems go away. It just gives you a different perspective on how to deal with what you're going through. That's what it does for me anyway.
And she shares a lot of this energy and information. I'm as well as I can communicate, and as uh, willing to expose energy and myself as I am. The truth of the matter is I'm an introvert, and I very rarely tell people much of anything.
Mm.
But
Well,
when it does,
I
you
appreciate
tell
it.
them
We got a lot
all of
out
it.
of you then, because you had a lot of important things to say.
Yes.
I mean, that's the information is there to give. We're in this arena, so it's to be volunteered and to be used and pushed forward. However, you know, if you go through even my old social media, you'll read some really what appears to be angry energy.
Okay. So that's why you didn't think it was appropriate when I called you delightful. You thought I had gone through all your old social media.
Well, no, the angry energy isn't even really angry energy. I'm a writer.
Yeah.
I'm just basically, I transpose what I see, feel, and it doesn't necessarily have to be mine.
Yeah.
And I say that all the time when I write things, and then people go, "What's wrong? Are you okay?
Exactly.
What happened?" And I'm like, this is not, me, this is me putting those things out there, because although I'm not a writer, I write poetry. So yeah.
Yeah. And angry energy, we would be minus books, songs, films. So much stuff would disappear if there was no longer someone to release angry energy.
Right.
We need that too. It's a counterbalance, and
Right.
that's one of the things we do have is a counterbalance.
Yeah.
Where my stuff seems darker, Well,
I just
and
think
the
it's
reason,
it's normalizing what we don't do on social media. We're so busy trying to create this image of ourselves as everything is great and I'm
Exactly.
perfect and I'm happy. And you guys are like, no, I'm a whole complete person who has multi aspects to my personality. And just because I was mad this morning doesn't mean I'm an angry person. It means I went through something.
yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Exactly.
Oh, or even if I am an angry person, it still means
It's
that I could be happy right now.
right. Yeah, exactly. But one thing that I've never put out there, and I thought it was important, is I've never put out there the idea that, my life is so perfect and everything is so great all the time, because that's not the situation. I just want people in a society where we live now, where everybody, like you said, wants everything to look so perfect. I just want to show uh actual reality, like not reality show reality,
Right.
real life shit.
Relatable.
and,
you know
and I'm basically either you take me where I am and how I am, or you go ahead and leave me the hell alone.
Which is refreshing and again, delightful. See, I was right. You guys are delightful. All right, so one piece of advice before I let you go, because I have hogged up way more time than you gave me, so I appreciate you. Each of you give me one piece of advice for couples that are in a place where maybe their friendship isn't as strong as yours is. What's something that they can do?
Ooh, can I go first?
Please.
Okay. Because I'm gonna lose my idea. um um I would say the one of the most important things is to love yourself first. You
Yes.
cannot do anything with a relationship or dealing with, other people's emotions or whatever, unless you can come to some type of uh love situation for you and who you are and how you are, so that you can present yourself, you know, to your counterpart or who you're dealing with. I just feel like that's one of the biggest things. It was one of the things that I did not do that could have broken up all of my relationships, even with my children.
Yeah.
If you don't find some type of love for yourself first, you're already failing. You have to.
Beautiful. Beautiful. And it sounds so easy, but it's so complex and something
It's
that
so hard.
requires lots of hours next to the water to accomplish.
Yes, lots and lots of hours. He
Saint,
knows.
Saint, bring it on home for us. What's your words of wisdom?
Uh, it's funny for me to be giving anybody advice on how to deal with other people as far as I'm concerned, but I feel like the friendship is what's actually important. And if you found a friendship at any given time with your connection with someone, that is something that you should be looking to revisit often, more than almost anything else, more than your romantic dinners, more than, locking yourself in the bedroom and jumping all over each other for a weekend at a time or some fancy location. The friendship has to survive or you won't.
Beautiful. I call that what's the state of our union in my world, right? We need to have regular check-ins about where are we at? What have we not been tending to? What haven't we addressed? What didn't used to be an issue but is now an issue? How are we going to do this from a friendship building place versus a criticism place?
Exactly.
And I think it's cool. I know these were last, but we went to a hotel recently and we said, we have to do this more often, because we just got to kind of, kick back and talk in a more relaxed, where we weren't, mom and dad and, dealing with all of this business. We were just able to deal with us. And it wasn't about, going to the hotel to go, okay, we gonna hook up. I mean, but we actually got to talk. And when he said we should do this more often, I'm like, we used to actually do that. And I think that that's really important because then we can connect to our friendship more. We used to do photo shoots like all night in a hotel, and that was like exciting for us.
Yeah.
6 or 7 hours with all these different photo shoots, and we both feel accomplished, and it just also strengthened us. And I do think that we need to start doing that again, when we can afford to more. When in those times where we can, that we should do stuff like that.
No, unless the Hilton family is listening, and
I'm sure they're my first sponsor. So when I get you those points, I will just pass them over to you.
All right. Yes. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your wisdom and your delightfulness. I knew you'd be delightful. See, it was appropriate that I called you delightful.
Well, I found you delightful.
Yes,
thank you. It's a mutual admiration society. You have another fan in your life. So thank you for this. I appreciate you guys. Hopefully maybe we could have you back on the podcast at some point. This was so relatable, and I think so many couples will get value from hearing what you've gone through and seeing what you've still have this solid friendship on the other side of it. So thank you for being willing to share it with me.
Well, thank you. Thank you for inviting us.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning into the D-Spot. Find me, Dr. Dana McNeil, and my guests on social media using the links down below. Subscribe for new episodes weekly and leave a comment letting us know how and if you can relate or what topics you'd like us to cover next. See you next time, and don't forget, go into therapy is cool.